Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Dismantling Injustice, where we're continuing our Pride series. And today we're talking to Rose Berry, the co-director of Black LGBTQIA Migrant Project, or BLMP for short. I talked to Rose about Black liberation, about migrant rights, about the intersection between those and queer liberation, and so much more. When we come back, we'll be talking to Rose. Stay tuned. Rose, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So I thought I'd just start out by just asking, why does Black LGBTQIA plus Migrant Project work at the specific intersection of Blackness, queerness, and migration?
Thanks for that question. It's a really good one. And surprisingly enough, we don't get asked that question often enough. So, I mean, historically, Black people have always had to carve out places and spaces for ourselves. So, BLMP is no different. And when you add the layers of gender and sexuality and migrant experiences, it really compounds the complexity of the multitude of ways we're forced to dissect who we are and the severity of systemic harm. One of the main reasons that we exist as an organization is to decrease the isolation of queer, trans, and non binary Black migrants and first generation people. Otherwise, we'd continue to be swept under the rug, pushed to the sidelines, and hidden in plain sight, making us even more vulnerable to xenophobic, anti Black, racist, homophobic, and transphobic systems. So, we have to protect ourselves and create safe spaces for us to thrive. And I'll just say that the hope is that we aren't only doing that within our organization, but that we're creating the cultural and systemic shifts necessary to create a safer world for all Black people everywhere.
That's amazing. I'm old enough to remember when BLMP was getting started, which
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago. But BLMP has grown so much over the last few years. I know that you all really, you're definitely about narrative and culture shifts, but you're also about building power. Right now, at least as far as I know, you all have over 200 members across the country. And I love it if you could just talk to us about the power that exists within this group and what you're working on right now.
Yes, Carl, we've known each other for some time, so you know me pre BLMP. But yeah, I'm really proud of our membership and how much we've grown. We have an intergenerational membership, like you said, of at this point almost 300 members. From all over the world, and we have members spread throughout the country. We have regional networks in the Bay Area, DC, New York, Minneapolis, and the South. And we have regional leads in each of our regions who usher the work locally. And we're ramping up our work in Texas to build an ecosystem of Black migrant strategy building on the ground there. So very exciting. And I'm also, really proud that our base is super activated. Our members are involved in local programming, national programming, all of our organizing work, our virtual member programming, political engagement, national campaigns, and also our national steering committee, which kind of acts as the the board for our organization. And, we say often Blackness is not a monolith, and I truly believe that. But I also just feel really proud of the ways that BLMP is a true embodiment of that. We have folks from all different genders and nationalities really creating a path for ourselves, and building up a world that wasn't handed to us. And I feel like that's super powerful.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always appreciated about BLMP is that you all really are about centering Black queer migrants. When a Black queer migrant is detained, if no one else is going to respond, BLMP is going to respond. If there's a local struggle facing Black migrants, BLMP is going to respond. And you're also just there as a space for Black migrants to feel safe and to feel as though they have
Mm.
their own organization. Why do you think centering and building on this power that you spoke of critical for our fight for both freedom and liberation, Black liberation? And what are the strategies that you all are using to build this power?
Hmm. Thank you for that question. Where do I begin? Um, I mean, it's critical because our people are the most impacted by systemic oppression globally, whether it's climate change, inequitable access to healthcare, and mental and reproductive health. Um, Black folks are detained and imprisoned at the highest rates of anyone else on the planet. Um, much like our identities, BLMP carries out our work in ways that address the various components of who we are. And so we do organizing and base building work, which is where we engage our members in shaping and informing national efforts to resist detention and deportations. We do deportation defense work, where we directly engage with and support detained community members, organizing campaigns for their release and help to connect them with local support when they are released. We do strategic communications work dedicated to amplifying the stories of Black, queer, trans, and non binary migrants and first gen folks, and using a multi pronged approach toward narrative development. And lastly, we engage in research. We're currently in phase 3 of our Black LGBTQIA plus migrant research project, which we're hoping will really shape our future organizing work and also feed our narrative work and support our policy work as well.
That's great. And that leads perfectly into the next question, because you just talk about, your narrative work and some of the work that you all do to shift narratives about the Black queer immigrant community. What are the narratives and experiences you're working to uplift and emphasize? And how can our listeners, which are, largely folks that are abolitionists, prison industrial complex abolitionists, border abolitionists, detention abolitionists, or, individuals that just care about changing the system, how can our listeners incorporate this narrative shift in their own lives?
Hmm, such a good question. Um, I mean, we use our narrative shift work to, first of all, just acknowledge that we exist, right? I know you know this. Carl is a fellow freedom fighter doing migrant justice work for a long time, but narrative interventions are just imperative in this work. Historically, when we turned on the news, we weren't ever seeing images of Black migrants. The picture of migration to the U.S. was historically, non-Black Latinx folks, and in the history books we're even indoctrinated with images of European migrants fleeing poverty and political and religious oppression. The only images we have seen or historically have seen in history books have been images of Black people captured and enslaved, and so we seldom see positive images of Black people migrating willfully, or of even, displaced Black people as a result of US imperialism's devastating impacts on our homelands. I also wanted to add that, when we finally started seeing images depicted of Black Haitians at the border, we were inundated with images of Black people being beaten, you know, um, connecting the dots. The media is strategic about what it broadcasts and what it doesn't. So I think there's no coincidence that they let images of horseback riding border patrol agents literally whipping Black people air. It's a reinforcement of the attack on our humanity. The less the world views us as human, the more warranted the attack on our bodies appears to the world. Um, and that's going to be the image that will be stamped in people's brains around what happens when Black people dare to seek out our own freedom. I also say that, right now, the current administration is, federal administration is caging people and deporting asylum seekers rather than acknowledging the responsibility of the US to reckon with its centuries of wrongdoing that have depleted our homelands of their natural resources, contributed to climate change, stolen, raped, and pillaged in our homelands, and then are trying to gaslight us into believing that it's our fault that our people are struggling to recover and survive. And so, we're doing narrative work that intervenes on the fallacies and the lies that condition our understanding of who has the right to migrate and who doesn't. that uplifts our people's stories and real life experiences, that intersects actual data by and for us. And that really, strengthens our strategies and shifts the big picture of who we are and where we come from, and what we go through. And finally, that is unapologetic in our framing and call to action around abolition of all of the systems that weren't designed and created to sustain our livelihood, that weren't designed for us to be able to thrive, that were instead very intentionally created to destroy our communities.
What keeps you going these days? Because this work is so hard and it's so draining and it's so hard to sustain.
Mm. Ooh, that is a really good question. I think I have a couple responses to that. I had a baby a year ago, um, and I'll try not to get emotional, but it's always been my people, right? Our folks is definitely what fuels me, what keeps me going when things are really hard and the world is really dark. And having a child, it really helped to reinvigorate my drive and my will to be able to hand my child a better world than I was given, and to hand her a world that um, already has achieved many of the things that we're working to accomplish. A world that's closer to liberation than we are now. And so I feel really driven by that. And I'll say the last thing is the spiritual healing that comes through this work, right? I think there's a spiritual healing that comes from transformational work that truly honors who we are as a whole. Um, when we came together to form BLMP for the first time in 2017, the pure and utter resonance of so many complete strangers, some of whom had never, at least knowingly, been in a room with so many other people with similar identities. It truly is an affirmation of your own humanity when you can look into the eyes of another person and see yourself and vice versa. And I think BLMP exists to create as many opportunities as possible for our people to be and feel seen. And so it definitely um, keeps me grounded, keeps me feeling purposeful, and also just seen in the world.
That's fantastic. How can people support and learn more about BLMP's work?
Sure. You can visit right now it's a webpage. We don't have a website, but blmp.org, to just learn more information about the ways that we do our work. And then it's also where you can make a donation. And you can follow us on social media across all major platforms. Our screen name is at official BLMP.
Rose, when I think of folks that are really embodying the real legacy of Stonewall as a fight against criminalization, against the police state, against a fight for liberation, and it's living out the legacy of folks like Sylvia Rivera. You are definitely one of the people that comes to mind. So thank you so much for joining us for our podcast for Pride Month and for just doing the amazing work that you do at BLMP.
Thank you so much. That really warms my heart, and that means a lot coming from you. So thank you so much for having me.
Listeners, until we're all free, peace out. Thanks again for joining us. Dismantling Injustice is brought to you by Envision Freedom Fund, an organization that works to transform the immigration and criminal legal systems while meeting the critical needs of individuals impacted by these systems daily. To learn more about our work and donate, visit us at envisionfreedom.org. That's envisionfreedom.org. Dismantling Injustice was created by Sally Israel. Our executive producer is Abigail Wolf and hosted by Carl Hammett Lipscomb. That's me. Special thanks to the team at Envision Freedom for being amazing. Until we're all free, peace out.